Hilchos Nedarim Perek Shishi, the laws of vows, chapter 6. We're going to continue to discuss the laws that govern vows that forbid pleasure from one person onto another. We're going to define exactly what is considered to be benefit. It's a little more than you might think, but also in some ways less than you might think. Certain things that you might think are benefit are actually not benefit. And the Rambam is going to begin with a general distinction between a person who forbids all benefit on someone else to somebody who forbids just food benefit on someone else. Food benefit is a little bit more limited, even though it's much more than just food, but it limits the scope of the vow. Says the Rambam, halacha aleph, ha'omer lechaveirei. If someone tells his friend, Hana hamevia lidei ma'acholcha asura alai, any pleasure which brings to your food is forbidden to me, or Hana hamevia lidei ma'achali asura alecha, or any pleasure which brings to my food is forbidden to you. So here the vow was limited to food. So what becomes forbidden? Says the Rambam, Harezeh hanesar, the person who became forbidden to have benefit, lo yishal min ha'asur loi, cannot borrow from the person upon whom he's forbidden, nafa ukvara, a sifter and a sieve. There's these two over here. Two ways to sift flour. That leads to food. Virei chayim, a hand mill. You ever see these they make today like model matzah bakeries before Pesach for the kids. They show you how they used to grind wheat. Literally two stones on top of another, and you grind it, and it grinds the kernels on the spot. So you cannot borrow such a thing from a friend, vitanor or an oven. Of course, I know the picture here is a regular oven, but you have to think of like the olden day ovens where it was like kind of portable. It would be this little pottery structure. You would light a fire into, and it would get very, very hot. You can't borrow that from a friend either. V'chol davar sha'osin ba'eichel nefesh. And anything, that's the top line here. See, davar sha'osin ba'eichel nefesh. Anything used in producing food. Aval, but, for example, what is permitted, mash'ilai, the person who made the vow can lend to the guy who's forbidden, nizamim, betabois, nose rings, b'kelim she'ein leisin ba'eichel nefesh, or any food that is not used, in any article that's not used in producing food. However, so far does the vow go, it's forbidden to borrow a bag to carry fruit. Or even a donkey. You can't borrow a donkey to transport your food because that's benefit that leads to food. Only benefit that doesn't lead to food at all is permitted. Halacha Beis, it goes even further. If it's a place where the custom is that they only lend out stuff with a fee, nobody lends out articles just like that. So then the person who's under the vow cannot borrow even utensils that are not used for producing food if he borrows it for free, because then the money that he saved could have been used to buy food. What if it's a place where they don't take a fee? So seemingly there should be no problem with borrowing utensils that are not related to food. But you borrowed it. I don't know if it's so common today, but maybe it is. You borrowed a utensil that's not used to make food. However, you borrowed it to make an impression. You want to look good in front of others, which might cause you benefit to other people. So you borrowed the guy's Cadillac to park it in your front yard, so people coming in will think, oh, he's a fancy guy. I'm going to give him other stuff. So now, indirectly, you've borrowed an article that has nothing to do with food. But it may cause a benefit of food. Or you want to just pass through his backyard. You're under a vow of no benefit, but food benefit. And you want to pass through his backyard to get to a place where you'll have benefit, food benefit from. The commentators say, like, for example, you want to go to a feast, some kind of a meal. These two cases are in doubt. In the Talmud, it's not resolved. So we say it's forbidden, out of doubt. If you transgress, we're not going to give you lashes. But initially, you shouldn't do it. Halacha Gimel. Ein bein mudar hana mechaveirei lemudar mimenu hana yasmacho. What comes out from this is that there's no difference really between a person who makes a vow not to have any benefit from a friend to a person who makes a vow not to have any food benefit from a friend. It's a very little difference. The only difference is elodrisas haregel, the idea of passing through property. Typically, if I say you cannot benefit at all from me, you can't even pass through my property. But if I say that you cannot have any food benefit from me, so technically you could pass through my property. In the last halacha, we just said you can't pass through property to get to a food-related issue. But let's say to go to business, as the Radvaz over here says, that would be allowed. Passing through someone's property, if the vow was limited to food, you can pass through property. And utensils that are not used to prepare food, if it's a place where they lend it out for free, that's something that's not allowed if you would have taken a vow to have no benefit at all, but it is allowed if you took a vow only not to have food benefit. Now we're going to see what else is considered benefit. And here we have some things that are actually related to this week. If it became forbidden for Reuven to have benefit from Shimon, bein beneder, bein bishvua, whether through a vow or through an oath, mutar loy sheyitein Shimon al yadai machatzis hashekel shereuven chayav ba. Every year, a person has to give a half shekel coin to the temple treasury. Today we do this right before Purim, as a remembrance to that custom. This year we're going to do it on Thursday because Purim is on Sunday. But this Thursday, literally in 4 days, everyone's going to come over here and give a half shekel or 3 half shekels as the custom is today. The point is we do some kind of remembrance for that. In the times of old, Shimon could have paid Reuven's half shekel debt to the temple for him. And generally, he can pay any debts for him. Why? When Shimon pays your obligation to the temple treasury or your debt, you get nothing. Reuven gets nothing in his hand. All he's done is he's stopped a lawsuit. If Reuven doesn't pay up his debt, what's going to happen? The creditor's going to come after him and start chasing him into court. By Shimon paying off the debt, all he did was stopped a claim. In halacha, we have a principle: stopping a claim is not considered providing benefit. Why? The Talmud explains, because we always say any lender can possibly work it out with any borrower can possibly work it out with his lender. We don't need you to step in. If I owe Philip money, I can take care of it. You stepped in, that's your issue. So if, let's say, I'm Reuven and you're Shimon, and I'm forbidden to have benefit from you, you can pay off my debt because you haven't provided a benefit. Lefichach, therefore, for the same reason, anything which is halachically considered a debt or an obligation, you can pay for me. Mutar le'lazon es ishtay ve'ezbana va'avada va'filu haknanim. Shimon can go and feed Reuven's wife, Reuven's children, Reuven's slave, even Canaanite slaves. Afal pishu chayav b'mzeresam. Even though Reuven is obligated to feed them himself, and seemingly you're taking care of me, you're providing a benefit. No, you're just stopping a claim. But he shouldn't feed his animal. His animal he shouldn't feed, whether it's a non-kosher or a kosher animal. Because the fatter the animal gets, the more benefit Reuven has. Now he'll be able to sell off his animal for more money. Or if it's a kosher animal, to eat more meat. So therefore you're providing a benefit. Halacha hey haya Shimon kohen. If Shimon was a kohen, Reuven comes into the holy temple to bring a sacrifice. Who's on duty? Which kohen's on duty that day? Boom, Shimon, his friend that he forbidden to have benefit from. Shimon can offer your sacrifice. We have an ironclad rule in halacha: shehakohanim shluchei shamayim heim ve'enam shluchei ba'al karban. It's a very interesting concept. Kohanim are considered to be the agents of God, not the agents of the people. When Shimon brings your sacrifice, he's doing God's work, not your work, and therefore he's not providing you any benefit. Umasi Shimon bitay habaygeres liruven midaita. If Shimon has an adult daughter, who's past majority, not in his jurisdiction anymore, he can marry her off to Reuven with her consent. Avalim haysanaira shari'adayin hibir shusay. But if she's a young girl under 12 and a half, she's still in the father's jurisdiction, still in Shimon's jurisdiction. Asur, Shimon cannot marry her off to Reuven. Because since the daughter's marriage is contingent on the father's consent, it's like the father handing her off to Reuven, basically providing Reuven with benefit of a maidservant to serve him. In other words, he's giving him a wife by his own accord, and therefore it's forbidden. Halacha vav, v'toyrem Shimon trumas Reuven, u'mafrish loy masreisav midaitai. This is our famous Truma and Meister chart. Whenever a person has produce, you got to give 2% to the Kohen, 10% to the Levi. Now, we're going to see in the next book, in the 7th book, there's a whole process how to do it. You got to count up your crop. You got to figure out how much the percentage is. Not everyone's good at math. So let's say Shimon wants to help Reuven out, and he wants to take care of his Truma and Meister. He'll go to his crop, and he'll take off all the tithes as it's supposed to be. So the Rambam says in this case, Shimon is allowed to do it for Reuven if he consents. Now, what does it mean, consents? Ketzad midaita. Here it means a little bit more specific. It means Reuven cannot directly instruct Shimon to do the work. Then he becomes your agent. But what he could do is, Amar Reuven could announce in shul, let's say, Kol haraitza lisraim yaveh v'yisraim. You know what? I need some help. I'm not good at math. I can't do my crop tithing. Anybody who wants to come help me, come and help me. And Shimon hears it. He can come. But you cannot tell Shimon directly to do it for you. Because by doing that, you're making Shimon into a direct agent of yourself, which is a benefit which is forbidden. Halacha Zayin, fascinating halacha. If you remember way back from the first book of the Rambam, technically speaking, the written Torah can be taught for a fee. But the oral Torah must be taught for free. According to the Rambam, I can't charge for this Rambam class. Rambam is included in Torah Shebal Peh, in the oral Torah. I can't charge for teaching it. And the Shulchan Aruch doesn't accept this. Shulchan Aruch says any teacher can charge what's called schar batala. Since I could have been working in another profession and gotten money for my income that way, so I can charge to cover that. But dryly speaking, the Rambam himself in his own writings, he decries people very strongly who charge for teaching the oral Torah. So based on that, based on the Rambam's understanding, he says, Umilamdoi Torah Shabal Peh. Shimon can teach Reuven the oral Torah, because anyways you can't take a fee for it, so you aren't providing any benefit. But not the written Torah, which usually you take a fee for, that teaches him for free, he's giving him benefit. If you're in a city where people just love teaching Torah, they don't even take a fee for teaching the written Torah. Then it's allowed. Either way, Shimon can teach Reuven's son, even though Reuven has an obligation to teach his son Torah. And Shimon, by teaching him, is freeing him of the obligation. That's not called a benefit in this context. Halacha ches, chala Reuven. Oh, here's our Torah class. It's our Tanya class. Philip, you're right over there. Halacha ches, chala Reuven. If Reuven became sick, nichnas Shimon levakrei. Shimon can go in and visit him. Even though visiting a sick provides benefit, but it's a mitzvah. And mitzvahs are beyond benefit. We have a rule in halacha, mitzvahs lav lehonesh nitnu. Mitzvahs are not there for our satisfaction. They're not there for our benefit.
Serving Hashem, right?
You're serving Hashem.
You're really there to serve Hashem.
Exactly, so you can do it. In a place where they pay somebody to sit with a sick person to keep him company, as they have today.
Yeah.
Caregiver is a huge business. Lo yeshiv Shimon. So if Shimon comes to visit Reuven, he cannot appear to be a caregiver.
Right,
so he can't sit down. Elo mevakre v'oimed. He has to stay standing the whole time.
Like that's literally what the halacha
is? It says, mevakre v'oimed. You got to stand up because that's the way you show. You're not there to keep him company. You're just there to do the mitzvah and then you're in and you're out. You can also, there's my picture here. You can be a doctor. You can treat him. Shimon can treat Reuven because that's also doing a mitzvah. The Rambam actually writes somewhere else it's a biblical mitzvah for a doctor to administer his care. Shazu mitzvah, yeah, it's a mitzvah. Cholsa behemas Reuven, but if Reuven's animal became sick and this guy's a vet, Shimon is a vet, lo yerape isa Shimon. Shimon cannot treat the animal directly. Aval oimer la yaseh kach v'kach. He can give advice. He can say, do this, do that. He can't give the treatment. Asks so that's what the commentaries say. What if there's no other vet in town? Then could he treat him? So they said then he has to treat him. Because tsar ba'al lechayim is a myth. Yes, you can't cause the animal pain. Plus, it's also called ashavas aveda. It's like returning a lost object. If a guy's animal is about to go lost, you have to help him by restoring it. But if there's another vet in town, that's what the Rambam's talking about. You can't treat him directly, you can give him advice. This is funny a little bit. Shimon can wash with Reuven in a big bath, but not in a small bath. If you're in a small mikveh, the more people there are, the higher the water gets.
Right.
So if Reuven goes into the mikveh with Shimon, it's a small mikveh, then Shimon is providing benefit by raising the water level. The yashin imay bamit.
I feel like
this is also much more common in the olden days when everybody, bathhouses were, the thing is like part of life. Yeah. The yashin imay bamita b'imay sachama. Also a thing of the past, really. But people didn't always have enough to have everyone have their own bed. People would sleep together. So the Rambam says,
I've heard about this.
Like hostels?
There was also goyim as well. where you would, if you needed a place to sleep, let's say you were in town from out of town, and you needed a place to sleep, they had these hostels, and they never had enough beds. They would put you in a bed with somebody.
Yeah.
Like a stranger.
There you
It
go.
wasn't uncommon.
So if Shimon and Reuven are on a vow not to have benefit from each other, the Yashin imei bamita b'imei sachama, avolei b'imei sakshamim. So fascinatingly, the halacha says, in the summertime they can sleep in the same bed, but not in the wintertime.
Because
He provides warmth. Umeisa imei alamita, he can recline on the same couch. Times of old, they used to recline on a couch during eating, during meal times. So you can recline with them on the same couch. They can eat at the same plate, at the same table, but not from one plate. Nor from the trough that was put in front of workers. I looked this up, fascinating thing. They call this a food trough.
Oh, wow.
Okay? This is not really for slaves, but this is basically, it's like a pop-up restaurant. A restaurant wants to advertise its products, so they come to a show, they put out this thing, literally this long trough, tons of food inside of it, yeah. Everyone comes around and you eat from it. So this they used to do for slaves.
Right.
You're out in the fields, yeah, the owner would bring it
Trying
out.
to give you each plates. What are you
Exactly, you put out all the food in one trough, go eat. So if Shimon and Reuven were both working for somebody, they cannot eat out of the same food trough. Why? Interesting reason. Shema yaniach Shimon chaticha achas toiva, because maybe Shimon, who is forbidden to provide benefit to Reuven, might leave over a good piece. He won't eat it. Reuven. So Reuven could have it. Or bring it closer to him. And he'll be providing benefit. Same thing in the food trough. But if Shimon already ate from a plate, and he knows that when he's going to give it back to the homeowner is going to put it back in front of Reuven. Apparently, in those days, this was like a customary thing. The owner would put a food tray in front of one person. He would eat from it. Then it would go back to the homeowner. He'd refill the plate and put it to the next guy. So here, Shimon knows that the next guy in line is going to be Reuven, but because he's giving it back to the homeowner is going to refill the plate. So there's no worry. It's permitted. We don't worry that perhaps he left a good cut for Reuven, providing him benefit. This was customary also in times of old. In some Sephardic communities, they do it till today. In a mourner's home, you drink wine together. It's called kois shel tanchumin, a cup of comfort. It's a way to forget the sorrow. You drink away your sorrows. So Reuven.
The same cup, or
Huh? No, but it was like provided. It was provided. So Reuven can come to Shimon's house and take a cup of this comfort cup from the hands of Shimon, Mishal Reuven, as long as the wine belongs to Reuven. So apparently the people would bring the wine, give it to the mourner would give it back to you as a sign of, like a host. So you can take back your cup of wine. And also the cup of the bathhouse. This is an olden day bathhouse. They don't have the top, they just show you the bottom, how it was like the heating elements were kind of placed. They would heat up these stones, and then on top they would have a floor layer, and the water would get heated on top of it. So apparently, there was a custom to have a cup of water while bathing, either so you shouldn't dehydrate, or just as like an expression of comfort, part of the treatment, part of the spa treatment. So Reuven can drink such a cup from Shimon's hand. She'ein bazeh hanoya. There's no direct benefit. It's not like a satisfaction thing. It's either part of the bathhouse process, or it's just actually stopping you from dehydration. So it's fine. Reuven cannot borrow a coal from Shimon, but he can borrow a flame. Coal is considered to have direct benefit, but if Shimon has a lit candle, you can just take a light, just light the flame, because the flame doesn't have substance. If Shimon owned a bathhouse or an olive press, and he rented it out to somebody else, if Shimon retained any ownership of the bathhouse, this is a bathhouse, or the olive press, this is an olden day olive press, so then, for example, he left any part of it for himself. Shimon owned the whole bathhouse. He rented it all out, but he has a private little room that he always uses, or a private little part of the olive press that he always uses. Even if he left in the bathhouse one bath, or in the olive press one sack where they would put in the olives, Reuven cannot make use of that bathhouse or the olive press. But if he didn't leave anything, he rented the whole thing out, then it's permitted. Because even though it's owned by Shimon, but it isn't under his jurisdiction. He rented it off to a guy who leased it from him. If Shimon has a field, Reuven cannot eat from the fruit of that field. Even on Shemitah, when it's all ownerless, because the vow was made before Shemitah when it was owned by Shimon, and at that time it was Shimon's, so the vow extends. But if he made the vow during Shemitah, he can eat from any fruit that are leaning out of the field, but he shouldn't go into the field, even though it's technically ownerless, not because the fruit have a problem, but because you can only go in to get the fruit. The decree is maybe you're going to wait in the field after you finish eating. Torah only declares the property ownerless when there's fruit. As soon as there's no fruit, it reverts back to being Shimon's. So you're going to be in Shimon's field with no permission. Therefore, stay out of it. Only eat from fruits that are outside of the field. When do we say that you have these restrictions? When the vow was formulated with these words, when he said, any benefit from these properties is forbidden to you. But if he said, benefit from my property is forbidden to you, not this property, or the oath or the vow that Reuven made was a prohibition on all of Shimon's property. So here, fascinatingly, even when Shemitah comes, you can eat from Shimon's property because now it's no longer his property. Because it's all left Shimon's authority. Still, don't go into the field for the same reason. You're going to end up being there when there's no fruit and it's not ownerless. But when you say my property or your property, only while it's his property. While it's not, you can go in. If the vow was only forbidding food, Reuven said, I'm not going to have any benefit from your food. If the vow was made before Shemitah, bein beneder, bein bishua, whether by a vow or by an oath, you can even go into the field. Because only benefit is food, not field. But you cannot eat from the fruit, of course. If the vow was made during Shemitah, you can go into the field, eat from the fruit, because the fruits at this point don't belong to Shimon, they're ownerless. Hashem declares that on Shemitah, all fruit are ownerless. Halacha tezayin. Here's another law. When Reuven is under a prohibition to benefit from Shimon, he can't even lend him stuff. Because if you lend, you might end up borrowing. You can't have any benefit. Same thing. You can't give him a loan because maybe you'll borrow from him. You can't sell him stuff because you might buy from him. Anything which might lead to you having benefit from him is also forbidden. If you end up working with Shimon, they were harvesting a field together. They must work far from each other because they might end up helping each other, which is forbidden. If somebody disowns his son because he sees his son is not learning Torah, and he becomes forbidden to have benefit from his father. This was a common thing in those days. People wanted their kids to be true to the Torah ways, and they would say, if you don't keep the Torah ways, you're out. So even though the wording was, you can't have any benefit from me, the Rambam says, he doesn't mean fully. A father can fill up for his son a barrel of water, or to light a candle for him, or to roast a small fish for him, because he only meant large benefit. And these small things, water, candle, fish, they're not considered super important. And the Rambam concludes with the following halacha. Okay, maybe we should have put on some yarmulkes here. But the point is, a guy makes an oath or a vow that he's not going to speak with his friend. Can he text him?
No.
That says, I won't talk to you. Can I write him a letter?
Rabbi's probably pretty young, you could do it.
Says the Rambam, yes, speaking is the mouth. You can write to him. You can text him.
You can
The
apologize.
letter of the law probably.
Huh? You even can do more. Uledaber im acher, v'hu shemeya ha'inyan sheyirtza lahashmiya. You can speak to another guy loudly,
Oh, so he
having in mind that guy should hear. Because that's how the Gaonim ruled. Because you can't speak to him, but writing or speaking to someone else, that's okay.